The 761st Tank Battalion of the US Army is about to face serious action against a reinforced German division. The 761st have had to fight prejudice before they had even engaged the Germans, as they are composed entirely of black American soldiers and NCOs, commanded by white officers. Some army commanders expect them to flee at the first engagement, but the 761st prove their worth.
They were African American soldiers. Their commanders never intended to send them into battle. And yet African American soldiers fought through 6 European countries, into the heart of the most violently racist empire the world has ever known. The victims of Nazi terror would never forget them.
And suddenly we saw the Germans running left and right, and this guy walks in. We thought he came out from the moon. An angel walked down from the moon.
The Black Messiah.
The 761st Battalion, the Black Panthers, distinguished themselves by fighting continuously for 183 days until the 6th of May 1945.
I looked up that day, May 5th, 1945, and I saw an African-American soldier with a horror on his face. I thought he was the Messiah. As a survivor of the Holocaust, I come from another world. I come from a universe where my people were condemned to torture and death for no other reason but because they were Jewish. Of course, not all the victims were Jewish, but all the Jews were victims. We got into Mauthausen. Mauthausen was the camp where my father was killed just weeks before the end. And I remember very little except being very, very sick. And I remember one day I looked up and there was a black soldier, a black American soldier. You see, the Allies knew what was happening to us by 1942. Unfortunately, we were not a priority. In fact, they refused to bomb the railroad tracks, which took the victims to Auschwitz. And so the leadership of the Allies knew what was happening. The soldiers didn't. And this particular black soldier that I remember was standing there totally devastated. The horror on his face is something that even in my state I cannot ever forget. And I was, unable to really distinguish between nightmare and reality. I weighed about 60 pounds and I was really more dead than alive. I have one memory of that soldier, and I will conclude my presentation with this poem, which I call The Black Messiah. I wrote this poem for him. A black GI stood by the door. I never saw a black before. He'll set me free before I die, I thought. He must be the Messiah. A black Messiah came for me. He stared with eyes that didn't see. He never heard a single word which hung absurd upon my tongue. And then he simply froze in place. The shock, the horror on his face. He didn't weep, he didn't cry, but deep within his gentle eyes, a flood of devastating pain. His innocence forever slain. For me was yet another dawn. I found my black Messiah gone. And on we went, our separate ways, for many years without a trace. But there's a special bond we share, which has grown strong because we dare to live, to hope, to smile, and yet we vow not ever to forget.
The Germans running left and right, and this guy walks in. We thought he came out from the moon. An angel walked down from the moon. We didn't know to kiss him, to hug him, and we were numb. We couldn't speak, we couldn't move. I can't even, because I get, it's something, you know, I'm sorry.
The Black Messiah.